Namashivaya children. Today we shall start with the first chapter of history in class 9th, that is French Revolution. Until now you were unaware of the revolutions outside our country. Until now you have studied only about the history of our country, but in this class 9th you will be studying outside, that is the world history. So we shall start with this French Revolution. Before that, we have to understand what is French Revolution. Nowadays, we have thoughts of liberty, freedom, and equality around us. Always we speak about these words. And like everything has its own history. As you saw, freedom, liberty, equality, for that even we Indians have fought for that. So, same way, even these ideas have their own history. These words, liberty, freedom, and equality. French Revolution is the part of that history. Around these words, it is there. The French Revolution is the end of the monarchy system that was there in France. The Declaration of the Rights of Man during the Revolution announced the coming of the new time. So, how did they put the end to the French monarchy that were there? That you're going to see in this lesson, children. Let us start the lesson. Now, let us start with an incident here. It was in the city of Paris, the Paris city, in the month of July 14th, 1789. It was morning time, and there was a news that the king had commanded his army to move into the city, and the citizens were very much frightened about this. This was just a rumor that was spread among the people. Rumor spread more quickly than the reality. So 7,000 men and women, they formed a people's militia means military, in front of the town hall in the Paris city, and they decided to attack the Bastille prison in the city that was there. Now the people's military will attack this fortified building prison called as Bastille. Here, where they hoped to get, they wanted the bullets and shells, because until now they don't have any arms and ammunition with them to fight against anybody. So they came to know that in this prison there were bullets and shells. So they will attack this, and they killed the commander of the Bastille, and prisoners were released, and Bastille was destructed completely, and the stones that you can see, it is a building, or it is a fort that is built with the help of stone pieces. So what did the people do? They took these pieces of stones when it was destructed, and these stone fragments were sold in the market, and children used to purchase them because they wanted to always remember this destruction in their mind. They wanted to keep it as a remembrance in their mind. The days that followed saw more rioting, both in Paris and the countryside. All over you could see. Most people were protesting against the high price of bread. Then, much later, when the historians looked back upon this time, they saw that it is the beginning of a chain of events. This is only one event. But when we go on studying, there is some reason for the people to attack this prison. So, what was that, and why did this happen, and how did this happen, arises a lot of questions in our mind. So, let us start the lesson by studying the French society during the late 18th century. How was the society? How was the king there? There, at that time, was a king called as Louis XVI. So he was the king, or you call him as a monarch, isn't it? So Louis XVI was from the family called as Bourbon family, and it was a family of kings. He will ascend the throne of France. So when he ascended the throne, his age was 20 years, and he was married to a Austrian princess. Her name was Mary Antoinette. So, after he came to the throne, the king found that he is not sitting on a throne which is he didn't find that he is happy, because he had a very big problem. What was the problem there? Means he had a empty treasury. Always, children, the kingdom should have a good amount of money with him, isn't it? Then only he can run the kingdom. But what happened here? The first problem that he faced was he had an empty treasury. And long years of war was one of the reason, because they had the financial help they had been giving to France, and added to this was the his princess, his wife who was there. She was a very luxury demanding lady, and there was a palace called as Palace of Versailles. So this palace had to be maintained, and it used to cost him a lot. So under Louis XVI, France helped the 13 American colonies to gain their independence from the common enemy Britain. So the war added more than $1 billion of debt. Debt means loan that had already risen to more than 2 billion. So already it was a billion. Now how much was it? 2 billion livres. Livres means it is a currency, unit of currency. Ours is rupee. In the same manner, it is called as livres. 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 So, the lenders who used to give money, who gave the king the credit. Credit means money. Now nobody gives money without any interest, even the bank, isn't it? So the lenders took opportunity of this, and they began to charge 10% interest on the loans that the king was taking. So the French government was obliged to spend an increasing percentage of its budget on interest payments done. To meet its regular expenses, there were other expenses also, like the cost of maintaining army, court, running government office or university. The state had no other way. So it thought that it will increase the taxes. Yet this measure would not have been sufficed. French society in the 18th century had three estates, and only members of the third estate used to pay the taxes. So before that, here, children, there are several reasons which I have given in points. So that is, the France supported 13 American colony. Then this led to the debts that was in billion livres. Then lavish lifestyle was there. So this is the Palace of Versailles. Versailles was a country village when the palace was built. So you can see here how it is. Today it is a wealthy suburb of Paris, some 20 kilometers southwest of the French capital. Which is the French capital? Yes, Paris. The court of Versailles was the center of political power in France from 1682. The royal family, you can see here how the picture I have showed you how it is, the palace. The royal family was forced to return to the capital after the beginning of the French Revolution. Versailles is therefore famous not only as a building but as a symbol of the system of absolute monarchy. So this is another picture here. The royal family, that is Louis the king and his wife used to stay here, and they used to live in luxury. And this is the inside picture of the palace of Versailles. You can see here this picture is a hall where there were a lot of mirrors. It is called as Hall of Mirrors. So let us come to the three estates here which were prevailing in the France. Before the revolution, the French people were divided into three groups. The first estate, it consisted of the clergies. Second estate were the nobility. Third estate were the common people, where the upper middle class was there, urban workers were there, even the farmers, peasants were there. Legally, first two estates were enjoying lot of privileges and they were exempted from most of the taxes. Let us study in detail how these first, second and third estates were there. The first estate consisted of rich and poor clergy. They were very rich. Then there were members of the aristocracy, means kings who lived in luxury of, and wealthy church lands were there with them, and there were also poor priests who lived much like the farmers. Second estate, it was the nobility. It was inherited, and they inherited the title and got whatever wealth they had from the land. Some members of the nobility had little money but had all the privileges of the noble rank. Coming to the third estate was the one where there were common people who were far the largest group in France. Everyone was not the member of the first or second estate. Here, the third estate included wealthy merchants whose wealth was of the nobility. Then there were doctors and lawyers, shopkeepers, urban poor, peasants who worked for the land. So this is about the society here, children, and in the next class I shall continue with some more information about these estates. And this is all for today, children. Namah Shivaya.